Hello everyone, I'm Michele Calvello from the University of Salerno in Italy. I'm sure we all hoped to be in the beautiful Athens at this time. Personally, I would have loved to present these in the beautiful venue of the Acropolis Museum as planned. Whereas, here I am in my room recording these for you to watch at your place on June 25th or even later on demand if you want. Anyway, that's what we can do, so let's move on. My presentation will deal with how to produce a case study webinar for geotechnical engineering education. In particular, this presentation describes the phases needed to produce and promote a webinar aimed at presenting a geotechnical case study to be used by instructors of geotechnical engineering undergraduate courses as supplementary educational material for the students. The initiative was conducted by me, and from here onwards I will call myself the producer, as a pilot project aimed at setting the stage for a series of such webinars with a mandate from ISSMG TC 306 on geoengineering education. Of course, I was not the main actor of this project. Professor Carlo Vigiani was. He is Emeritus Professor at the University of Naples Federico II in Italy, and from here onwards we will call him the presenter. The title of this case study is Porto Tolle Test Embankment, a full-scale experiment on the consolidation of a thick clay layer. And this is the funny way Professor Vigiani introduces his webinar.
We know that the age improves the quality of clays, and within some limits it improves the quality of wines. But my age did not improve at all my English, and I apologize for it.
Well, I am absolutely sure you're not going to have problems in understanding the English of Professor Vigiani during his lecture, which of course I invite you to watch. The production phase of this webinar started at the end of 2017 and finished at the end of 2018. The 1 year needed to complete the production involved collecting the case study material and creating various drafts of the webinar. These were presenters' tasks, refining the draft slides and the audio commentaries, and this part involved discussions between the presenter and the producer, and then a series of producer tasks like refining the audio and video quality, creating the final video and the supporting material, identifying the appropriate online outlets. The first major technical choice a producer and a presenter need to make when preparing a webinar is agreeing on the tools to adopt. In other words, the main software to prepare and record the presentation has to be identified. To this aim, a preliminary discussion was conducted to decide whether to record the presenter while talking. We soon agreed that this feature would have only had a very limited added value for the potential viewers of the webinar, and therefore we decided to spare ourselves the technical difficulties that the realization and the use of such a recording would have implied. Concerning the presentation, to minimize the added burden a recorded webinar poses to the presenter with respect to a typical live lecture, it was decided to adopt a presentation software that the presenter was already familiar with. And the choice easily fell to Microsoft PowerPoint, also because of some embedded features that allow the user to seamlessly record the audio commentary and the animation while presenting, easily activate at any given time during the presentation the recording of the mouse movements to use it as a pointer, and also it is relatively easy to play, edit, and export the presentation recordings. An important issue discussed between the producer and the presenter at the very initial stage of the project was the proposed structure of the webinar. And so, starting from the personal style of a typical presentation by Professor Vigiani, we finally ended up with a new style that was devised to include a series of specific features such as clearly readable fonts, relatively large font size, a dark text on a white background, a consistent color scheme, and also limited and consistent animation schemes. Concerning the duration of the webinar, it was decided to set its length to less than 30 minutes, because a longer length would have probably limited its appeal for instructors to use in their classes. And finally, we decided that the sections to be adopted in this case were to be 5, and so the project, soil exploration, the test embankment, interpretation of results, and lessons learned. The case study has been described in only one published article, Bilotta and Vigiani, 1975, written in Italian and only available as a postprint. Therefore, the producer and the presenter agreed that an important part of the slides preparation should involve editing the original black and white figures to adapt them to the agreed format of the slides. The composition of the presentation has been essentially performed by the presenter, and during this phase, the role of the producer was basically limited to ensuring that the slides would comply with the agreed format, such as creating an initial web page with the logo of the ISSMGE, creating a section title, and also helping with the animation. Before a complete draft of the presentation was available, the presenter recorded parts of it for quality checks. Once the presenter and the producer agreed that the recording procedure was effectively working as it should have, and that there was no need to undertake a staged presentation, the final recording was performed by the presenter without the presence of the producer. The final recording has been then edited by the producer with the aim of improving the description of some charts by adding small animation objects, but most importantly, the quality of the recorded voice, which was already quite good, but had some small background noise. And as you will notice now, listening to an audio extract of the commentary to slide 8, listen before.
The constitution of the subsoil.
And after.
The constitution of the subsoil.
So this is the effect of the applied noise reduction filter. And to do this, an external software was used, I must say. Then also the audio-video transition between some slides were, let's say, fine-tuned by using the transition menu and the trim audio features of PowerPoint. The final edited PowerPoint presentation was then exported in the following formats: slideshow presentation, slides printouts, and most importantly, internet quality and high quality video files. All these formats are standard output options in PowerPoint, easily performed. I just want to mention that there is a create a video feature in PowerPoint, within which, before exporting, the user has the option to define the video settings in terms of video quality, video size, video type. The webinar is accompanied by a short interview, it's only about 6 minutes, of Professor Carlo Vigiani conducted by me. The main aim of the interview was to introduce the scope of the webinar. Yet we also briefly discussed about other issues, and to entice you to see the interview, I'm going to show you here just a brief extract of the interview, which was conducted in Italian but has English subtitles.
Ma come è cambiata la professione dipende dove, in quale settore. Io una volta, tanti anni fa, ho fatto un paragone fra la nostra professione e quelli che costruiscono mobili. Ci sono due approcci. Uno è l'approccio, per esempio, di Ikea, la grande industria che produce mobili, ha ottimi progettisti, macchine raffinate, produce una quantità di mobili belli a poco prezzo che vende in grande quantità. E se uno sa scegliere può trovare delle cose bellissime a poco prezzo. Poi ci sta l'artigiano che ha la bottega ai quartieri spagnoli in un basso, con lo spirito e gomma lacca, piglia i mobili antichi, li restaura, li riproduce. E così c'è la moderna società di ingegneria con tutti i suoi computer, le sue cose, e il vecchio ingegnere, non voglio dire con l'ego calcolatore, ma quasi. Ecco, io sono cresciuto in questa seconda visione e tutto sommato sono ancora convinto che nell'ingegneria geotecnica l'approccio artigianale, chiamiamolo così, forse è il migliore e comunque funziona ancora.
All right, let's move on. To post online the video of the webinar and the other supporting material, TC306 institutional web outlets were used. In particular, a YouTube channel was purposefully created towards this first webinar, and as written in the description, the slides of the presentation are available for download on the TC306 GeoWorld repository. The presence of the webinar was advertised using the ISSMGE news section and the discussion topic on GeoWorld. And I want also to point out that, as reported here, a follow-up initiative was promoted by Professor Marina Pantasidou. She prepared a problem inspired by the case study, an assignment she already used within a written exam in her soil mechanics course at the National Technical University of Athens. Well, of course, the significance of this initiative does not simply lie on this exam problem, but on the aim of having such homework problems together with detailed solutions to provide incentives to other instructors to use case study webinars in their courses. Then there is also a plan, not realized yet, unfortunately, of the TC306 Webinars and e-learning task force to distribute, along with each produced case study webinar, a set of peer-reviewed annotations, a sort of notes for instructors, augmenting the webinar with additional material to be used during class, for instance, in a scenario where students are asked to watch the video before. To conclude, the main aim of this presentation and of the companion paper, which is already available in open access on the ISSMG paper repository, has been to describe with an adequate level of detail the work that a producer must carry to help a presenter in preparing and delivering a webinar. It's worth at this point highlighting some of the lessons learned that can be proposed as general advice. 1. The time commitment involved in the process must not be underestimated. Indeed, one must not forget that almost always, like in this case, both the producer and the presenter work pro bono. The commitment for the webinar tasks, in other words, may end up having a low priority status in their work agenda, even for long periods of time. 2. The presenter and the producer must be familiar with the tools to be used to prepare and record the webinar. And in this case, the choice to use a presentation software well known to both presenter and producer really helped significantly in all the tasks required. Finally, the presenter and the producer do not necessarily need to be distinct persons. Indeed, I would say that this article may be also profitably used as a reference for presenters wanting to produce their own webinar. And with this, I thank you very much for your attention and I conclude this presentation. Bye bye.